I have unzipped my provisional crochet cast on, put all of my cast on stitches onto a spare set of needles, and I'm now ready to use the 3 needle join to finish my brim. So the first step is to bring the spare needles up through the work, folding the brim so that the spare needles and my working needles are right next to each other. So I'm going to do this very carefully so that I don't accidentally drop any of the stitches. And I'm going to push this up inside the work, bringing the needles, both sets of needles, parallel to each other. And here is my folded brim, and as you can see, the needles are parallel. Now you're going to want to make sure that your working needles with the live yarn attached are on the outside and the spare needles are on the inside of the work. Now this is called a 3 needle join because you're only going to need to work with 3 needles. This needle here, this tip here, we're not going to need. So I like to pull it a little bit and push it back so that it's not in the way as I work when I'm doing this join. Okay, so the 3 needle join that I like to use is a flat 3 needle join, and that's different from most 3 needle joins or 3 needle bind offs. The general principle for this bind off is that you're going to work 1 stitch from the front needle together with the same stitch, or I should say the parallel stitch on the back needle, in such a way that they become 1 stitch. So it sort of mirrors a knit 2 together, or in this case, it's sort of like a knit purl 2 together. And the reason I do it this way is because it creates a flatter join than if you were to knit both stitches. Okay, so to explain what I mean, I'm going to show you how this technique is usually worked. So a standard 3 needle join, you would stick the tip of your working needle into the first stitch knitwise on the front needle, and then into the first stitch knitwise on the back needle. And then you would pull the yarn through both of these stitches, 1, 2, and you create a single stitch. That's a standard 3 needle join. That's not what this pattern does. And the reason for that, you can see there's a purl bump here. There's a purl bump here on the back of the work and a knit stitch on the front, which creates a little bit more, it creates a more visible edge than we want for this hat. So, okay, I'm going to return both of these stitches to their needles and show you how we're going to be working the join here. Okay, so the way that I work the 3 needle join in this pattern is that I stick my needle tip into the first stitch on the front needle knitwise, and then before I do anything with the back stitch, I'm going to make sure that my yarn is between both of these stitches, which means that it's in front of the back needle. And now I'm going to stick my needle tip into this stitch purlwise. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull the yarn through that stitch, and then I'm going to pull it through the stitch on the front needle and slide both of them off the tips of the needle. Okay. I will demonstrate again. So the working yarn needs to be between the tips of these 2 needles. You're going to take the tip of your working needle and stick it in knitwise to the first stitch on the front needle, and then purlwise to the first stitch on the back needle. Pull the yarn through that stitch on the back, pull the yarn through the stitch on the front, slip both stitches off the needles. Demonstrate one more time a little bit closer. So what we're going to do, working yarn between the tips of the needles, stick my working needle tip knitwise into the first stitch on the front needle, and then purlwise into the first stitch on the back needle. Pull the yarn through the stitch on the back needle, through the stitch on the front needle, slip both stitches off the needles. Okay, and this creates a nice clean join. Okay, and that's it. You're just going to do that all the way around until all of your stitches have been joined, and you can remove the spare needles. And that's it.